Hey Doc, how's it
Hello.
going?
Hi, how are you, Aaron?
Looking good, doing well. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time today. And thank you everyone
Absolutely.
for joining. We've got an interesting conversation with Dr. Nick from SteadyMD at the Fittest Doc on Instagram. And Dr. Nick and I have had a chance to hang out together, and I can tell everyone on the line right now, he absolutely is the fittest doc, as you can see from the image there on the phone. So what did you just squat the other day? You almost did a 500-pound squat, right?
Yeah, 485 successfully and 500-pound fail.
Oh man, congrats. That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Well,
thank you.
I could speak from experience being, in the healthcare field for 10 years myself and meeting hundreds of docs. You definitely are the fittest doc. So keep up the good work.
I'm pretty sure Julie Fouché is, but this is a coronavirus
We'll give you the
conversation.
fittest male doc. How about that?
Okay.
So today we're going to talk about something very topical, very much in the media. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's very concerned about it, which is the coronavirus. So we wanted to get an authority figure like yourself, someone educated in medicine, to kind of set the record straight. There's just a lot of fear mongering going on right now in the media, and misinformation being spread. So want to set the record straight. So why don't you just tell everybody, what is the coronavirus? How does it spread? What is there something we should be afraid of here?
So, Aaron, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this. But essentially, coronaviruses are actually pretty common human viral infections. They were initially identified in the 1960s, and they commonly spread person to person. There are in total 7 coronaviruses that can infect people. Amongst them, there are actually 2 common, what are known as alpha coronaviruses, 2 common, what are known as beta coronaviruses. These common variants are among the viral infections that cause the common cold. Additionally, there are also MERS coronavirus, SARS, that everybody heard about a couple years back. That is a coronavirus variant. And now this coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is also known as SARS coronavirus 2. So this is what's called a novel coronavirus, and that essentially implies that it is a coronavirus that in the past was not known to infect human beings. And as I said it earlier, it's currently known as specifically COVID-19. So, these last 3, MERS, SARS, and COVID-19 are notable because they were initially relegated strictly to animals.
Gotcha.
They subsequently evolved and are now capable of making people sick. In
So they
terms of
made the jump, so to speak, from
yeah,
animals to humans.
absolutely, absolutely.
Similar to how we anticipate AIDS first started in the animal population, and
Sure, sure.
yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely. So in terms of spread, kind of between people, and how that happens. So it is currently thought that this is a primarily respiratory droplet exposure spread virus. So it may be possible, yes, that a person can get COVID-19 by touching a surface or an object that the virus has been on. And then, touching their mouth, touching their nose, touching their eyes. But currently, it is not thought that that is the main way that the virus spreads. Also, there is currently no evidence to support the suspicion that COVID-19 can be spread through transmission of food. So, I know that some people have concerns about certain, whether it's items coming in from China or other places exposed to COVID-19, or food. People seem to have a concern about that. And, insofar as we've currently seen, that is not a concern. There's nothing essentially as of right now to support that from an evidence-based standpoint.
No, I appreciate you clearing that up. So what type of symptoms would someone expect to get? How long is the incubation period? What symptoms would develop, and how could you mitigate the spread of COVID-19?
So currently, the incubation period, which, I know a lot of people have heard so far for COVID-19, is thought to be 14 days. Oftentimes, it can actually, symptomatically, people can start showing symptoms within 3 to 6 days. In general, at least for that 2-week period, at least for 14 days right now, is thought to be the incubation period. Symptomatically, when patients do start to experience symptoms, actually that implies that all patients experience symptoms, and that's not entirely true. So essentially, as of right now, the range of infected patients is all the way from asymptomatic, no symptoms at all, to fever, to kind of symptoms of an acute respiratory illness, including but not limited to cough, difficulty breathing, to myalgias, which are essentially
muscle pain,
tenderness, and kind of muscle pain, to fatigue, to what's called an ILI, an influenza-like illness. And I mean, at its most severe, currently, COVID-19 has presented in a small but important population with severe pneumonia, with kind of respiratory failure, and in some people with septic shock. So, it has a wide variety of presentations, and given the current death rate, the current death toll rather of this, it can absolutely be presumed that a number of individuals have this asymptomatically. There have already been a number of cases of recoveries all around the world. So, yeah.
There was one estimation that the reason that kids are not contracting this symptomatically, say, is because they've already got some form of the coronavirus or one of the 7 type of mutations that you discussed earlier in school, and so they already have some built-up immunity. Is there any truth to that? Yeah,
that's an interesting thought. In terms of what is known from the CDC, in terms of what is known by the governing health bodies, there's currently no known data specifically in that regard, and as such, I can't comment on that with any amounts of certainty.
Sure. Now, I have read from the WHO that the mortality rate, the death rate with this is significantly higher than, say, influenza or the common, what people think of as the common cold, as high as 3.5%. Now, when I read that, my first thought was, well, they're taking known cases, meaning you have to be symptomatic enough to go in and get treatment, and then 3.5% of those people are dying. But we've also read, and please clarify this, that up to 80% of people will be mildly symptomatic or asymptomatic, so much so that they're not even going to seek medical treatment. So it appears to me that when this all plays out, that 3.5% is going to be way on the high side, and this could easily come in well under 1% or even 0.1% because of the number of asymptomatic people that will never seek treatment as a result.
Yeah, Aaron. So, what you're speaking on there is what's called a case fatality rate. So, originally when this first hit, the data coming out of China, coming out of approximately 70,000 in China, estimated that the case fatality rate was 2.5%. However, just this week, the WHO, the World Health Organization, released their own figures and their own numbers, saying that the number was 3.4%. So they actually, the percentage according to them was actually a little bit higher. And that number was computed looking at the number of confirmed cases and then case fatality within that. However, as you noted, and I think that's a very notable observation that you made, there are likely thousands and thousands of people who are infected. And as I noted earlier, who are infected and asymptomatic. And kind of if you look at the math here and, you know, the numerator and the denominator of figuring out the case fatality rate, people who are walking around infected and asymptomatic, and furthermore, those who stay asymptomatic over the course of their disease course, over the course of their infection, and completely recover from it, those people, if they were counted, would change the denominator significantly.
Significantly. Yeah.
So, you know, as such, I think that essentially as more testing kits become available worldwide and become more widespread, we will be able to accurately calculate how many people are infected and the case fatality rate. But, you know, essentially, if you want to look at it compared to other infections, flu is estimated at a case fatality rate of 0.06 to 0.1%, kind of depending on the year and the impact of the flu for that year. SARS was calculated at about 10%, and the MERS coronavirus was calculated at about 34%. So
gotcha. So okay, that's good information. And just to put things in perspective, I read the 2017-2018 flu season, about 35 million Americans got some form of influenza in that flu season. We're talking about worldwide so far 110,000 cases of coronavirus worldwide that have killed approximately 3,500 people as of this morning. And put that in more perspective, 26,000 people die every day in this country from worldwide, from cancer, almost 50,000 cardiovascular disease, 3,000 people die a day from mosquito bites, believe it or not. So,
wow, did not know that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about your immune system. We had a question I saw come through. Does seasonality come into effect here? As things warm up, we always see the common cold influenza cases go down, I think because we're getting more vitamin D exposure, but love to have your thoughts on that. Would you expect to see some seasonal adjustment here?
You know, that is another thing that I think would be irresponsible, any healthcare practitioner to comment on as of now, because insofar as I know, Aaron, there is no absolute data speaking on COVID-19 and its uniqueness, as I stated, right? This is a novel coronavirus. So given that we simply don't have enough data to state with certainty that this is something that, you know, over the summer will decrease.
Because there are so many people that are asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic that have the possibility to contract this. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between the symptomatic group and the asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic group?
How so?
In your estimation? I'm just saying, like, why would I get severely sick and somebody else not be symptomatic at all? Does that have to do with how well our immune system is functioning, or?
I understand. So, you know, one could argue that absolutely plays a part. You know, with the data that has come out of China, thus far rather, there is absolutely a male predominance. There seems to be a male predominance with this, though, you know, I will, you know, disclose that was likely biased by the fact that men in that cohort in China were very commonly smokers and had chronic lung disease. You know, but otherwise, the people who seem to be hit the hardest, at least from the data coming from China, are the immunocompromised. So, you know, those who are post-transplant, have cancer, you know, even something like diabetes, sure. and the elderly who, you know, chronically live in a state of immunocompromise compared to the younger and healthy. You know, paradoxically, at least for now, insofar as I know, there have not been any diagnosed cases in children younger than 9 years old. So, you know, it seems that at least for now, from what I've observed, children seem to be relatively spared.
Great, that's good to hear. What can we do to boost our immune system? I mean, there's a lot of, let's start with exercise. You know, there's differences in opinion. Should I go to the gym? Should I not go to the gym? Should I do low impact, easy exercise, or should I go, more CrossFit style, high impact, high
So,
intensity, I should say?
So exercise, I think, from the research that I've seen, exercise is no different on the body than any other stressor. So I think a better question here is, how does stress affect the immune system? And how I would answer that is that it very much depends. So transient stressors, such as those associated with work, with family, or even exercise, absolutely been shown to be associated with a bolstering and strengthening of the immune system. Unfortunately, more chronic, consistent stressors, those that are non-remitting in nature, such as a chronically stressful job or home life, or even persistent, non-transient states of anxiety, especially those of the untreated type, tend to absolutely cause a persistent inflammatory state physiologically, and with that, a persistent depression of our own ability to fight off infection. So
those people that are kind of constantly in that fight or flight mode, you want to get out of that. I know for my job, obviously here at LifeAid, it can be pretty hectic on a daily basis, and so part of my morning routine, is being very clean with my diet, practicing breath work, meditation, making sure I get really good sleep, staying hydrated right when I wake up in the morning and throughout the day. How do you practice any of that? How does that tie in, do you think, to your overall immune function?
Yeah, so I think that those type of activities absolutely benefit immunity. Essentially, those are what I like to call mindfulness techniques, right? And they have absolutely been shown. Kind of one of my favorites with my patients is cognitive and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, has absolutely been established for quite some time now, in that it can positively affect mood with that, and essentially cause a lessening of mental stress and anxiety. And then obviously that will positively affect our immune system. So kind of personally, what I try and do for myself is practice gratitude. I have a gratitude journal that I try to write in when I wake up in the morning. And then something that I've been getting into more recently, that I used to be into in high school and then fell out of it, was meditation. And I definitely think that's something that's definitely beneficial for us in the long run.
It's funny, we're discussing ways to reduce chronic stress and therefore boost your immune function. Yet a lot of people know I don't have a television. I don't listen to the typical radio, and just don't subject myself to newspapers and all that. So I'm not into the hype and hysteria that is being kind of forced on people right now. But all of that is very fear driven, creating this like chronic stress response, which is the exact opposite of what we need to be doing for our immune system. It's very ironic to me.
It's paradoxical, right?
It's very paradoxical.
Right, absolutely. Agreed.
Let's get into supplementation. Do you take any specific supplements yourself for immunity, and do you think is vitamin C, vitamin D, echinacea, these type of things worthwhile?
So personally, Aaron, I do not take any supplements, simply because I eat a whole foods based diet. As you stated earlier, you're very good about your diet. I think that when you are eating a whole foods based diet, it becomes redundant. Now, let's back up. I'm not saying that if you take certain supplements while eating a whole foods based diet, that there's anything bad with that. In fact, essentially your kidneys will excrete that. So at most, taking these supplements could be wasteful, because you could quite literally pee them out. You could excrete them. But I think that essentially, if you're on a whole foods based diet, you don't need that. Now, otherwise, there are kind of some non-traditional therapies used for the common cold, including echinacea, vitamin C, zinc. For those three that I just mentioned, there is really no solid evidence that either of those effectively treat the common cold. However, there absolutely is some data that show that a significant decrease in illness duration can be had if you are taking vitamin C before the onset of symptoms.
I've been on a diet ever since this thing hit of about 5 immunity aids a day, and after the fourth one, my pee goes totally bright yellow. So I think I need to cut it back just a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you're peeing it out. It's still helping you, but you have to keep in mind that your body can be saturated.
Absolutely, sure. Absolutely. Let's talk about the gym. In Italy, we read this morning on Morning Chalk Up that they forced closure of the CrossFit gyms in Italy. I've reached out to many of my friends, gym owners here in the U.S. They're all open, and they say they're as busy as they've ever been. So there's really a mixed viewpoint here on what's going on outside of this country and so far in the U.S. Should people stay at home, go to the gym? What do you think?
So I think, so if we're talking about CrossFitters specifically, here's our problem, my problem included, right? That most CrossFitters hate missing the gym, right? When you're kind of at that place where it's a habit of yours, you don't want to not go. So I think it needs to be clear and communicated with people who are sick in any manner, especially if you have a fever and cough, myalgia, essentially the signs and symptoms that we mentioned earlier, that it is absolutely paramount that you not be in the gym, that you stay home, essentially self-isolate, simply to keep others safe. As I mentioned earlier, the people who are hardest hit by this are those who are immunocompromised for whatever reason. And unfortunately, insofar as, or rather, even though you may know your own comorbidities, you may know what health issues you have no idea what other people in the gym have. So, people in the gym may live with type 2 diabetes, for example, right, and live in a state of persistent immunocompromise. As such, you are absolutely exposing them to literally infection and potentially the escalation of that. So I think that keeping sick people out of the gym is important. Additionally, in terms of kind of gym owners, at my gym personally, at my CrossFit gym, we are providing sanitary wipes. This is here in Denver, Colorado at CrossFit Omnia. They provide sanitary wipes, and the coach every single hour when you're done using your equipment is encouraging people to take the Clorox wipes and wipe down your equipment. And that's something that, I've noticed, at least myself in recent times, a lot of gym goers have been doing.
So if you're feeling symptomatic, stay home, not necessarily just for yourself, but for other people who may be immunocompromised that you don't even know about at the gym. Absolutely. Make sure you wipe down your equipment, basic stuff, right? Wash your hands.
Yeah.
What do you think about hand washing versus the antibacterial, the antibacterial pump stuff?
Sanitizer?
Hand sanitizer, yeah. One way or the other?
They're both efficacious. I mean, if the hand sanitizer has a high enough level of alcohol, which most hand sanitizers that you can buy in the store absolutely do. They're both efficacious. They both work. Hand washing, if you're going to do that, the minimum recommended time is 20 seconds. This will probably be a little bit nerdy, but kind of going through med school and scrubbing and going into surgeries, it's commonly stated that you want to get under your fingernails, and kind of the best way to do that as you're washing your hands is to do something like this, with the soap and the water in your hands, with all your fingernails, and essentially, make sure to lather and wash well. But yeah, the other things that you mentioned are absolutely recommended. At this point, I would not recommend that anybody cough into their hands or sneeze into their hands. I recommend rather that you cough into your elbow, and essentially, if you do have to cough into your hands or sneeze into your hands, then make sure that you wash your hands immediately afterward. If you do need to, I remember just the other day, this literally happened the other day, Aaron. I was at CrossFit and the workout it was a barbell workout, so I needed to tape my thumbs. So I taped my thumbs, and just before 3, 2, 1, go, I felt an eyelash in my eye. So I literally ran to the bathroom, took off the tape on my thumbs, washed my hands. Only after I washed my hands did I stick my finger in my eye, get rid of the eyelash, because I'm not doing a workout like that, and then, proceed to join the class again. So, you can absolutely touch your nose, touch your mouth, touch your eyes if you feel that you need to, but do not do so before adequately disinfecting.
Yeah, no, great piece of advice. I saw a question back to vitamin C. Any recommendation on dosage? How much vitamin C per day?
Yeah, so the specific study that I referenced earlier looked specifically at daily dosages of 200 milligrams and above.
Okay,
so
great.
At the bare minimum, that's what I'd recommend.
Great. Have you changed your own travel habits, or what would you recommend people that have travel scheduled?
So, essentially, listen, if people absolutely feel that they need to travel, then travel. But ultimately, I would recommend that people do not, there are a couple places that are absolutely recommended against at this point, and that's China, that's Iran, Italy, Japan, South Korea, and essentially absolutely avoid those areas. But if it's for whatever reason absolutely mandated, do so. If you have to do so, I would absolutely recommend avoiding close contact with anyone whom you are aware has a fever and a cough or other respiratory symptoms.
Gotcha. Now, I read that this particular virus has an R naught of 2 to 3, and R naught basically means when you're infected, how many people would you be expected to infect, right? Mm-hmm. But if I was infected, then 2 to 3 other people would be infected as a result of me. Mm-hmm. I haven't done the math or looked at any of the math, but it seems like that could spread fairly quickly. And again, we've already stated, fortunately, most people will be minimally symptomatic, and if not asymptomatic. At what point do we reach herd immunity? Could you talk to herd immunity at all, and what that means? And at what point does this kind of become like the common cold, where, okay, you might get it on a seasonal basis, but it's not that big of a deal?
Aaron, I have to apologize. I just got a call and this got interrupted, so I didn't pick up the question part of that. Could you say the question again?
Yeah, so I was talking about, as it spreads, and we'll continue to see an uptick in cases because of the R naught being 2 to 3. We're going to reach a certain saturation point or something around herd immunity. I've read it, somewhere potentially around 60%. After that happens, any estimate on how quickly that could happen, and then what happens after that? We get symptoms. We've been exposed to this virus. Will those symptoms just kind of run their course typically, or is this something that we need to be concerned about every year now?
So, essentially that R naught that you mentioned, that's not what I've heard.
Okay.
There's still, like I said, right, this is a fast moving story. As such, I do think it pays to be receptive to the CDC and information that's coming out from the governing health bodies. But essentially, as of right now, from what I've heard, COVID-19 R naught is anywhere from 1 to 3. And that kind of changes, right, depending on how many people are affected, both symptomatically and asymptomatically. Right. Measles are not. So measles is essentially one of the most virulent infections that anyone can get, and the R naught for measles is 15 to 20. Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, right. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The R naught for influenza, that we know for absolute certain, right? And that is 1.3. So
Okay.
given what I stated earlier, that the R naught of COVID-19 is between 1 to 3, arguably, this could either be less infectious or more infectious than
Then
influenza,
influenza.
but it is
Gotcha.
absolutely not as infectious as other things such as measles.
Good. That's very helpful, puts it in perspective.
Mhm.
Anything else that we haven't covered that you think that the public needs to know regarding coronavirus?
No, other than that, I think that, it's obvious that this has put infection at the forefront of everybody's thoughts. But I think what is important to realize and important to know is that there are many other, as I stated earlier, there are many other variants of coronavirus, as well as rhinovirus, as well as adenovirus, as well as everything else that kind of causes common infection that is spread through society commonly. The things that are notable that most healthcare practitioners and doctors are saying, the simple things: wash your hands, keep your hands away from your mouth, from your nose, from your eyes, cough into your elbow, stay out of work, stay out of the gym if you're sick. All of those things these are, if you kind of step back and look at them, they're basic. They're very basic, but they are very effective, right? And unfortunately, people, because they're so basic, tend to be dismissive of them, when in reality, they are kind of,
Most effective.
the most effective. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
step one. So I would just recommend that everybody kind of keep basic sanitary protocols in mind. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Doc, last question, and again, really appreciate your time today. Why do you think this particular virus has gotten so much media attention and hysteria?
Because it's new, and because it's unknown, and because it's novel, as I stated earlier. When something is entirely novel, when you have any novel coronavirus like MERS, like COVID-19, like SARS, you essentially, if something is novel, there is no immunity to it on a population scale, right? And as such, it can, depending on the R naught, it can be very virulent, or it cannot be virulent. But essentially, I understand there's a lot of fear. I think what I don't agree with on a fundamental basis is that it seems that there's not a lot of evidence-based knowledge being perpetuated and spread about it, or spread on it rather. So, a source that I always recommend is the CDC and the CDC website. Anyone can go there, not just doctors, but it is absolutely a great source for information. A source of information that is without the hysteria and anxiety that we are commonly seeing these days on television and elsewhere.
So avoid the news, go to CDC's website for the latest and greatest. Wash your hands, be smart. Don't transmit this thing around. Stay home if you've got any symptoms going on whatsoever. Doc, really appreciate your time. Dr. Nick from SteadyMD, where can people find out more? Quickly tell us, what is SteadyMD, and if we wanted to engage your services, how can we do so?
So SteadyMD is a novel. Here we go. Is a novel service that has started many years back, way before my time with them. But it essentially advocates for a personal relationship with your physician, as opposed to going to the doctor like so many of us do these days, and either A, having a different doctor every single time you come, or B, having your doctor rush you with your appointments, despite the fact that you just waited 30 days or even more, to see the doctor, and you probably have a lot of built up anxiety about whatever you're coming in for. And, you get into the room with the doctor, they seem to be rushing you at a 5 or 10-minute appointment. So SteadyMD gets rid of that by being membership based. You pay a small fee monthly, and then you can get in contact with your doctor however many times you want, with no copays, no waits. You message your doctor, you call us, you video chat us, whatever you'd like. And, you know, we're there for you to attend to kind of whatever your medical needs are, as well as preventative. I'm, you know, probably given CrossFit and my mindset towards lifestyle changes, I am very big on the preventative side of medicine and preventing the diseases of kind of lifestyle or chronic metabolic diseases that unfortunately is prevalent in society. So yeah, that's what SteadyMD is all about. You can check it out and read more about SteadyMD at www.steadymd.com. And there's a frequently asked questions page that will answer, you know, a good amount of people's questions.
Awesome. Well, check out SteadyMD. Connect with Dr. Nick at the Fittest Doc on Instagram. I am Aaron Hinde, president and co-founder here at LIFEAID Beverage Company at FITAID. Thank you all for your time, Doc. Thanks a lot for
thank you, Aaron.
setting the record straight here. Appreciate it. Take care.
Yep. Take care.